Bitcoin is right now trading inside this descending wedge pattern after having, of course, broken down tremendously here from this bear flag pattern. We retested that $67,000 region, which I mentioned as a potential shorting opportunity. Yes, unfortunately, my short was not open by like $200, but we might have another chance for, of course, a lower short position entry, but for another short position entry coming up. Now let's have a look at what's happening. I moved this target actually down. It was previously right here at the previous low at $59,000. We did, however, create a lower low, which is now being supported, but we are still essentially trading within this descending wedge pattern, which, as we know, in theory on paper is of course a bullish pattern, which somewhat plays out in this way, usually breaking up to the upside. Now, I think if we go here and find nice support from here, we can hit that liquidity that is being built up on the upside, which is of course here at $61,000 and $62,000 to $63,000. Keep in mind though, we have a big chunk of liquidity now, which we're approaching on the bottom side here, which is just basically $58,000 to $57,500 on the maximum drawdown on the downside. Now, if we find support here, I think we can grab the liquidity on the upside, but to make it very clear, I am very bearish on Bitcoin on the overall picture until October, because we know that Bitcoin usually in a bear market goes down for 12 months. Look at this, top to bottom of the bear market 2 years ago, 365 days. Last bear market, 365 days. Bear market before, almost 400 days. So it's pretty much almost about 12 months, and this would bring us to approximately October of this year, if not a bit around about that time, right around about Q4 in October. I expect the bottom to be happening around about that time. And if I also look at here, Bitcoin, this is the last full cycle, and this is this current full cycle. And after Fibonacci extension lines drawn from the bottom to the top, we can see right now we are approaching that golden pocket, which we have of course filled last cycle. And we even went all the way to the 786 level, which would bring us all the way to like the 40s, the low 40s. But for now, I'm really looking at that golden pocket, which I think will be filled, as we currently are at a level which we are right here. Last cycle we were here, so this is very much a similar level right now, and I think we can go to this fill that golden pocket, which will bring us into the low 50s. Now I want to make something very clear. For Bitcoin, yes, we might have a short position opportunity here, right? But that is not really important. You can skip that even. It's not important. It might make you a small amount of money. What is really important, and what I'm really looking forward to, is that next big long position for Bitcoin. And that is a position that I'm going to be hopefully holding for at least 2 years. So the plan is that we know that Bitcoin, look at this, we know that Bitcoin usually goes down for a year and goes up for 1,065 days. So almost 3 years, Bitcoin goes up in a bull market from the bottom to the top. And the plan is to basically long that and have a long position open with a low leverage, and then add to that position once we have confirmed the bottom in order not to get liquidated. And I'm going to plan to be opening my short position probably somewhere starting from here, like the low 50s, maybe $52,000, all the way until what I already just mentioned, the low 40s, which could also be hit. So this is just the wick below here, and also right here where we had some previous trading activity going on. And what the plan is basically, let's say on theory, I want to invest, let's say $10,000. What I would then be doing is putting $2,000 as an opening position here with potentially a 3x leverage. And then if we drop down, I will let's say every $2,000 of a drop, I'll put another $2,000 down until eventually we drop by $10,000, in which case all $10,000 would be open up in 5 positions, and I would increase the leverage as we go towards the downside. In this way, I'm hoping to grab that bottom. So let's say Bitcoin goes here and actually bottoms out here. So my last entry position is not being filled. That is fine. At least I have built up my average DCA entry price somewhere at the bottom of the range, and then I will hold that, of course, until at least 2 to 3 years into the next bull market. And that's basically the plan, and that's how I think good money can be made. Now, let's talk about MicroStrategy, because MicroStrategy has actually said that they have established a Bitcoin monetization program under which they might sell more Bitcoin. They might sell up to $1.25 billion of more Bitcoin. Now, keep in mind, the last time MicroStrategy sold just 32 Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin actually dropped 21.5%. Now, if MicroStrategy does sell up to $1.25 billion of Bitcoin, this entire case that we've been talking about with a quick pump here to the upside, of course, gets invalidated, and we will probably have that big correction to the downside coming very, very soon right here. And keep in mind, guys, we are trading alongside this major green line of support and resistance. Have a look at the dashed green line all the way from the top here at 126,000 in October of last year. And we know 12 months the bear market lasts. Okay, 12 months to October of this year is when I expect the bottom. And regardless, look at this. We got rejected. This is where the line started. We got rejected right here at this first big bear flag pattern. We went right through the second bear flag pattern, and we found nice support here from, of course, around about the $59,000 region. And once we break down, I expect us to find another support here around about the low 50s on this green line. Now, if MicroStrategy sells, of course, I think this can happen very soon. And he's also announced that he's now paying out his interest twice a month. So I'm a bit concerned here for the company. If they can manage to hold up and not go bust before we find the Bitcoin bottom, I think they'll do very well. And I mean, he somehow seems to be able to secure more investments. He just secured another $1 billion or so in investment. We're looking at MicroStrategy as a stock. So this is STRC as a stock. We went down all the way down from the $100, which we normally trade at, which would give you 11% interest. And we went all the way down to like $70, now back up to $84 because he said he secured some investment. Let's see what will happen. Anyway, I don't recommend you guys to buy this. I don't recommend to buy MSTR either. I just buy Bitcoin, and I think you're very well. Now, look at this, guys. Right now, this is a historic signal of a bottom signal. And this is basically telling us the Bitcoin supply that is in a loss right now. And we can see that right now more than half of the Bitcoin supply, so over 10 million Bitcoin out of the 21 million Bitcoin that is in circulation, is in a loss. And usually when we see such high losses in supply for Bitcoin, we see bottoms. So this is when the bottom is happening. This is when the bottom was happening. Every time we spiked for the Bitcoin supply in a loss, we had a bottom for Bitcoin. And right now we are again approaching these levels as we, of course, we are coming closer and closer to October of this year, and that big moment when these big positions and long positions are going to be opened on this channel. Now, here also, just keep in mind, Bitcoin closed below its 200 weekly moving average for the first time since 2023. And also this is a historic sign that we find a bottom. So let me show this to you guys on here. If I go on the weekly chart and I put the weekly moving averages on here, 1 second, then we can also see right now that actually the week closed below the 200 weekly. And last cycle, we actually went all the way to the 350 weekly bottom. And the cycle before that, we found a nice bounce from the 200 weekly, but we went eventually to the 300 weekly. So historically, like I already said, closing below the 200 weekly is a good sign that we are close to the bottom, and buying sometime around now on spot is not a bad decision if you look back in 3 years' time. So also, Bitcoin usually finds a bottom 500 days before the halving and finds a top around 500 days after the halving. So we can see this right here, ideal time to buy around 500 days before the halving event, and ideal time to sell around 500 days after the halving event. This is just a different way to look at this chart, which of course tells us that the time it takes from the top to the bottom is around 1 year, and from the bottom to the top around 3 years. And when is the next Bitcoin halving? Well, the next Bitcoin halving is potentially in March or April 2028. It's whenever 210,000 Bitcoin blocks are being mined. And 500 days before that will bring us to approximately November to December 2026. So basically Q4 2026. I'm saying October, that's what I'm calling. Finally, I want to show you guys this. The average cost for which Bitcoin was purchased is right now $49,800. And historically, Bitcoin always finds a bottom when we are below the average long-term holder realized price, the average price for which Bitcoin was purchased. And we are approaching that price. And like I said, I think we can find a bottom somewhere in the low 50s, worst case, low 40s for Bitcoin. And with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed it. Let's see what will happen here. If we can hold that big support here at around $58,000. If we can, I think we can move up And of course, like I said, to the liquidation prices, which I already mentioned, like it's, what was it? It's $61,000 to $63,000. Otherwise, I'm expecting a big move to the downside. With that being said, see you tomorrow and bye.